Bonjour à tous. Voilà, il reste de la place devant pour ceux qui veulent s'installer. Pour la prochaine session qui parlera de comment résoudre des problèmes complexes dans le milieu financier grâce à l'IA dans le cloud. Merci d'accueillir sur scène, je suis ravi de vous avoir avec nous. On a d'abord Camille Journet de Oracle, Sales Director pour la partie cloud. On a Nicolas Savides qui est Alliance MAnager pour la partie EMEA chez NVIDIA. Et bien sûr, Amit Bhasin qui est le directeur financier pour la partie banking au UK et Western Europe. Donc je vais laisser Camille démarrer par une petite présentation. Et puis ensuite, on aura un échange entre Amit et puis Nicolas. Et à la fin, vous aurez le temps de poser vos questions également, si vous en avez. Merci.
Merci Corentin. Bonjour à tous. Donc Camille Journet, enchanté. Je suis heureux d'être là devant vous. Merci d'être présent. Je vais prendre 2-3 minutes juste pour introduire un petit peu le sujet et aussi introduire qui est Oracle aujourd'hui. Parce que je pense que si je posais la question individuellement à chacun d'entre vous, tout le monde connaît Oracle. Mais personne, je pense, ne sait vraiment ce qu'on fait aujourd'hui. Aujourd'hui, la majorité du chiffre d'affaires d'Oracle est fait sur le cloud. Donc on est devenu un hyperscaler, on est le 4e hyperscaler, on est à la limite avec Google. Pour vous donner un ordre d'idée, sur notre premier trimestre, on a fait 2,2 milliards de consommation cloud, 13 milliards de prises de commandes et 3 milliards sur l'IA. Donc ça commence à vraiment être un sujet qui est extrêmement important, pour vous donner un peu des ordres de grandeur. La semaine dernière, on avait Cloud World, qui est notre événement annuel. Et ça va me permettre de revenir sur 3 thématiques qui, aujourd'hui, je pense, font la différence et la pénétration d'Oracle sur le marché, parce qu'on a une croissance de 45% sur les offres cloud. Le premier, c'est on a annoncé à ce Cloud World un partenariat avec AWS. Et c'est en fait notre 3e partenariat, parce qu'aujourd'hui, on a un partenariat fort avec Microsoft, avec Google et avec AWS. Donc, ce qui vous permet, vous, en tant que client, de pouvoir avoir des services Oracle de base de données au sein des data centers de ces cloud providers. Voilà, donc on est le premier, on est le seul à le faire, et j'en suis personnellement très fier, parce qu'on vous permet d'être plus agile quand vous prenez une trajectoire cloud. Ça, c'était la première annonce qui était importante. La deuxième, et je pense qu'elle peut résonner très fort au sein de cette communauté des services financiers, c'est que Oracle a développé depuis très longtemps, et aujourd'hui c'est vraiment industriel comme service, ce qu'on va appeler des offres Cloud at Customer. Donc l'idée, c'est quoi? C'est que pour des marchés régulés comme le vôtre, où il y a beaucoup de lois, de normes, de choses à respecter, et je le vois chez beaucoup de clients, et je vais en parler juste après, en l'occurrence BNP, il y a un choix à faire d'où on va localiser les données. Tout à l'heure, on avait le CTO de Covea qui en parlait aussi. Et voilà, c'est quelque chose qui est important. Je ne veux pas forcément mettre mes données dans un cloud public. Donc nous, on a des offres, différents types d'offres qui vous permettent de faire plutôt rentrer le cloud dans vos data centers. Donc vous allez retrouver l'automatisation, les services cloud, mais au sein de vos data centers avec votre régulation de données, vos firewalls, votre sécurité. Et donc on a fait des annonces nouvelles autour de ça, je ne vais pas rentrer dans le détail. Et le dernier point, c'est qu'on a renforcé et on a aussi fait des annonces autour de l'intelligence artificielle. On en parlera, mais on a un très gros partenariat avec NVIDIA. On doit être, si ce n'est le premier client, peut-être un des plus gros dans le monde, Oracle. Et on est en train d'ouvrir des data centers, donc ça s'appelle des GWAT data centers, parce qu'en fait, vous avez un enjeu qui est extrêmement fort autour de l'IA, et c'était le principe de la session juste avant. C'est que tant que vous êtes en train d'essayer de traîner, de poker, globalement, l'usage que vous allez en faire nécessite quelques GPU. Et puis s'il y a une mise à l'échelle, et c'est là où je pense que beaucoup de clients sont, vous allez avoir une problématique très forte, c'est que vos data centers ne seront sûrement pas en capacité de supporter la charge électrique générée par ce nombre de cartes, ce nombre de GPU, ce nombre de serveurs qu'il va falloir. Et c'est là où des cloud providers peuvent intervenir et vous accompagner. Et c'est là où Oracle, avec ses différentes offres, que ce soit du cloud chez vous, des offres de cloud souverain et du cloud public, on peut, à mon avis, trouver un angle d'attaque. On a eu la chance à Cloud World, et il y a peut-être des gens de la BNP qui sont ici, d'avoir le CIO, M. Gavgani, sur scène, voilà, qui est venu témoigner de l'engagement que BNP a pris. Et c'est un bon exemple de la relation qu'on peut avoir avec nos clients. L'engagement qu'a pris BNP, c'est de mettre justement du cloud au sein de leur data center, justement pour aller réguler tous ces sujets de contraintes légales, de data privacy, ainsi de suite. Donc c'est vraiment un enjeu qui est intéressant et je pense garder ça en tête. Si c'est des questions que vous avez, on a un stand et il y a l'équipe qui est là. Et d'ailleurs, il y a un simulateur de F1 sur le stand. Donc si vous voulez essayer de battre Verstappen, c'est le ghost du simulateur. Donc vous avez peut-être une carrière en F1 à tester. Voilà. Petite introduction, je vous remercie d'être là. Je vais passer, je crois, la main à Amit juste après. Donc Amit, il représente chez nous une équipe qui est vraiment dédiée sur les services financiers avec des logiciels et des suites qui sont vraiment très métiers. Donc l'idée là, c'est de vous présenter des cas d'usage très concrets avec des petites démos pour rentrer dans le vif du sujet et qu'on ne fasse pas juste de la théorie, parce que c'est un peu le problème qu'on a avec l'IA, c'est qu'il y a beaucoup de théorie et je pense qu'il est important, c'est de faire un peu de pratique. Je vous remercie.
Merci Camille.
Merci Camille. Bonjour à tous. And with that, I'm done with my French. I will now be switching over to English, so some of you will have to excuse my British accent. I'm Amit Bhasin. Pleased to be here with all of you to share the Oracle's financial services industry perspective. A quick introduction, I am responsible for Oracle's industry financial services business across Western Europe and the UK. And as much as we speak across so many conferences, up till the last one, somebody did mention a question saying, how can you have a conference where you have not raised the word AI? And look at the amount of advancement today we have made, that I am at a conference where the subject, the topic, the conversations for the entire day is about AI in the industry. So that's fantastic to be here with all of you. Quickly, as an introduction, this is just a safe harbor. Essentially, all it means is you cannot take anything against me or say whatever I say or do. I think the videos are just not playing. Is the video coming through? Okay.
The video is not starting?
Yeah, the video is not coming. Could we just... Maybe you want to take the cue from here? Being a software organization, right, how can the demos of softwares work in the first phase? Thank you so much. So I will spend the next about 10-15 minutes with you sharing about Oracle's investments in AI and what is the differentiated approach that we've taken in the industry, and talk to you about, those were quick snippets, on some of the use cases that we have at Oracle invested across both corporate banking and retail banking in the industry. And these are some of the more common problems that we've encompassed and we've come across talking to some of the most largest banks across Western Europe, and as for that matter, even for some of the banks across Asia and across North America as well. So Oracle's view, if you look at over here, is essentially about, our view is about bringing AI to the entire stack. When we initially started, yes, at the AI across the infrastructure layer, but when we said that the best way to increase productivity and to solve some of these use cases is you've got to embed AI in every layer of the stack. So we started right up from the cloud infrastructure, and as you can see over here, a number of models that we've deployed. Today, Oracle's cloud is available across about 48 regions in about 24 countries. The scale at pace at which we are expanding, speed is the name of the game, as much as AI is. But one of the most biggest tractions that we are noticing today is the dedicated region, the DRCC, where we are helping customers deploy some of their most mission-critical workloads, be it, for example, Vodafone. and I know it's in the telcos, or even if we are looking at, say, Deutsche Bank, which is again deploying their entire cloud at customer, where we are enabling them migrate most of their technologies, their Oracle databases at the cloud at customer. Customers like Vodafone are like 300 million plus customers. So again, they've moved where we've essentially deployed about 6 dedicated regions for them. The other one is in terms of we've got varieties of sovereign cloud. Today it's available in areas like, for example, Madrid, Frankfurt, which is how we are covering the entire Western Europe. We've got government clouds. So government clouds where it is even far more, the cage is even much more protected, where we are looking at essentially US, UK, and Australia. And then eventually it's the isolated regions. Isolated regions is essentially what we've done is because we've built that AI in the cloud, we've air-gapped. We've air-gapped that entire cloud infrastructure, enabling customers to provide far more secure services. And with the dedicated region, the beauty of it, it's not only where you are actually deploy your entire infrastructure, your mission-critical workloads, but you are actually getting the economics of a public cloud. So it's essentially bringing far more greater scale at the same economics of a public cloud. So that is how we've essentially taken our approach to cloud. And then finally is essentially in terms of alloys, where we've got our partners, where we've extended that entire AI cloud infrastructure and given it to our partners, where our partners can now extend and provide it back to their customers, be it Fujitsu, be it NRI, the entire Nomura Research Institute in Japan, where they've extended that entire Oracle Alloy across their entire estate and offering it back to their customers. So, and then as you can see, right, I mean, we've taken it right up at the top, and that is some of the use cases which you could see in the video, which I will talk to you about in slightly more detail. But combining this with the entire applications, which is where we've taken it right across the entire Fusion applications, our industry vertical applications, where we've actually put AI, and in terms of the AI that we've developed, we've today made it available, as you can see, across about 162 public and both private Oracle Data Cloud centers. It also covers our entire multi-cloud strategy, the recently one which we've announced with AWS and now with Google Cloud. Azure, with Microsoft Azure, as some of you may already know, we've already partnered with them. OpenAI is actually deploying the entire Microsoft Azure in the OCI platform to offer these services. But if you ask me, I think as I keep saying, right, speed continues to be the name of the game. I think the race is still out there to build the greatest large language models. And that is fueling unprecedented demand for our cloud infrastructure. So if you ask us from Oracle, where is the demand coming from? Why is it that, institutions or even some of the largest banks or even some of the smaller ones are looking at deploying their cloud infrastructure? The race is on to build the greatest large language models. And whoever can come with it, and it is still pretty much a trial and error. But if you look at it from how we've taken this approach, and this is where we've brought in essentially our vector search capabilities. So combining the entire compute, which is available for the industry, where we are solving some of those problems, is what we've combined is the entire vector search. Vector search is pretty interesting. In fact, this came out as part of the 23 AI release, where we've brought in the semantics, and we've essentially captured the vector dates, the vector indexes, which essentially makes far more easier to combine and search and provide a more accurate and informed decision. Now compare this with a case of, say, you're looking at for a natural language progression, an NLP question coming back to say, how do you make use of the public database? So all of the large language models, they will largely look at, in terms of the public databases. Over here, combined with the vector search semantics for the documentations, for the images that we are storing in, we are combining the private database and the public database to provide a more informed decision. A classic use case, which I would like to actually point out here, is with the recently Paris Olympics that happened. And some of you, if there are any swimming enthusiasts, or maybe some running enthusiasts over here, and if you maintain your own private data sets in terms of how you have been performing, and you want to compare that with, say, someone like, how did Leo Marchand perform in the Paris Olympics? What were his statistics, and what is the standard deviation compared to how I perform in my 100 meter, 400 meters? Disclaimer, I am not a swimmer, but I'm sure some of you are. So that is where vector search is a classic example, where the entire natural language question that you have posed, it is going to look at how Leo Marchand performed, what was his statistics, how many medals, and how was it that you are comparing it with your own private database, and then provide you a much more contextual response, which is how we are training the model. And the only way to train this model is we need compute. The only way we get compute is some of our partners like NVIDIA, and who are actually providing us, and we are investing billions. And I say that it is truly in billions of dollars, which is where Larry went on record recently in building acres and acres of compute, because there is no other way to train some of these models. I wish I could turn around and say, no, we'll do it on a CPU, but that isn't reality as we speak. So quickly moving on, in terms of, so Oracle's AI vision, as you can see over here, and I've mentioned it recently, it's all about bringing contextual intelligence. I think the industry today, if we flag at it, it's like, if you look at the wave, the industry has moved on. Earlier it was, distributed ledger, and then Bitcoin came in, and with AI, I think we are noticing that in Oracle, the situation is far more different compared to earlier. The answer is distributed ledger. Sorry, what's the question? No, the answer is distributed ledger. I think that should not happen with AI, which is where we are noticing. And where what we've done is we've actually, basically from a banking standpoint, if you can see over here, we've segmented this into two parts. One is in terms of providing the insights and the automation use cases, and that is far more focused to improve and personalize the customer self-service capabilities. So this is at the customer end in terms of the retail or corporate banking. Now look at it from a banker experience. So some of you, right? I mean, if you are bankers within the bank, so we've also looked at, over there we have combined digitization along with the insights and automations, and that is far more focused on improving the banker productivity. So whether you are looking at, from a corporate banking perspective, which is where you are looking at, increasing the productivity of relationship managers, or you are looking at offering far more improved self-service capabilities for your end customers in a bank, which is where we are making use of these. So if you look at all the 4 tenets in terms of Gen AI or NLP, machine learning, there are a couple of these use cases. Cash flow forecasting, which is a fantastic case where we are making use of machine learning, or whether we are looking at, call debtors, structures. And these are some of the embedded Gen AI use cases where we have designed the software in such a facility, and we are actually able to deploy these models on-site on top of Oracle Cloud Infrastructure to provide the complete end solution. The situation essentially arising is in terms of, you're going and having conversations with banks. And I do that in day in and day out with so many banks. And today we are talking to one of the largest banks in the UK, where we are actually helping them solve this problem in terms of their biggest book in the area of credit risk and corporate risk. So if you look at, whether example is a qualitative analysis of a loan application. And if I will need the video here, please.
Approaches the banker for a personal loan. Based on their discussions, the banker selects the small personal loan product for the customer. Once the application is initiated, the banker captures the customer details by either scanning a document or entering the details manually. In the assessment stage, the customer's credit score and credit report is fetched using our bureau integration services. The report is also submitted to the large language model. Now, this is where we run a generative question-answer system on the customer's data. The questions maintained as part of the qualitative scoring model are submitted with prompts to the large language model, and the LLM returns with suggested responses. These responses are based on the contents within the set of customer documents that were used to train the model. The underwriter then can use this information to go ahead and select the appropriate options to complete his task. The responses provided to the questions will be used for the computation of qualitative score, which is an important ingredient in auto credit assessment by decision service.
So a perfect example in terms of where we have, this was the first use case where we've actually embedded Gen AI in our software, in the design of our software, providing in terms of more of a qualitative analysis as opposed to, when somebody's sitting in the bank and trying to feed up or, fill up all of those questions. So another one which I would like to cover.
A customer approaches the banker.
Is in terms of so that was more, as you could see, right? That was more retail banking oriented. Now we further extended that to the corporate banking perspective. On the corporate and commercial banking, what we've done is, as you can see over here, is it's more of a sentiment analysis where we are looking at, in terms of, market news. How does the market news that is coming out and how does that impact a credit portfolio? Classic example, right? I mean, if depending on, the size and scale of the bank or the financial institution that you are, say, you have a customer by the name of, say, Evergrande. Now, Evergrande is going through some turbulence. Now, but how does that impact the entire book? Or, in terms of the news that is emerging, how does that impact your collaterals that you are bearing on forth? How does the moment it touches your collateral, it will impact your credit decisioning and the collateral that you are hearing, the RWAs, which is where immediately you will have the entire bank or their board all over it to say, you know what, because you are locking my capital. And everybody today, every bank that I speak to is all they're focused. This use cases become far more easier. They are far more enriching. If you can go back to any institution and say, we can help you unlock some of your capital, which can be deployed rather than just getting it deployed and rather than just getting it blocked in form of an RWA against a collateral on a credit book. So here's a perfect example in terms of how rapidly we can analyze some multiple information sets. I think I may need that. Could we? Thank you.
Credit department and banks need to continuously monitor the portfolio of their borrowers so that early warning signs are detected and new business opportunities are identified. However, manually monitoring news and assessing its impact on each customer can be time-consuming and prone to oversight. To help with this, we are proposing using AI for market news screening functionality and sentiment analysis. The system will be able to screen relevant news and summarize for quick consumption of the user. It will also identify the sentiment and level of impact of the news for the borrowers. It will then allow the user to take actions, like contact the borrower for an update, set up facility reviews or amendments. The functionality works as an assistant for the business teams in continuously monitoring the credit portfolio.
So that was a perfect example where we could see, in terms of, how sentiment and market news, and it could be applicable whether you are in the retail industry, whether you are in the financial services industry, where we've actually deployed, where we've actually training these models on our cloud infrastructure, and you can then extend. The more and more you train, the more compute you give, the better the returns are. But it ultimately does come to two parts. One is, of course, in terms of how much more we can train, and then we also want to combine that with some of the vector search capability that I spoke about. So quickly, in terms of the next 1 or 2 minutes, at some of the traditional AI use cases, as you can see, we've basically segmented them in terms of what machine learning can do, what natural language progression can do, and in terms of some of the digital assistants and the deep learning capabilities that we have brought out. So very interesting, and again, we can have this much more. I will not spend too much time into getting into each one of these, but just picking one or two over here is in terms of, for example, cash flow forecasting. Today, we are able to use the model, the large language model. We are actually looking at patterns. So we are studying those patterns. So go into any of the larger banks, and if you can go back to them and we can help solve their cash flow forecasting capabilities, we are combining that with our model, studying the patterns, combining that with the buyer, the pair, the behavior of the pairs, and which then results in far more accurate information in terms of how we are predicting what the cash flows will be for the next 2 quarters or so. So that is number one that we are solving. The number two that we are solving is in terms of the customers, the streamlining in terms of originations, that which you did see in the demo. The third one that we are doing is in terms of the call debtor notices. The call debtor notices is a perfect example of text to speech, where basically, we are trying to reduce the average handling time in terms of collections, debtor collections, where it's far more manual intensive. So that's the third one. And the fourth one is in terms of supply chain finance, where we've extended that example as well. If we can just have this last video.
Banker navigates to the dashboard and searches with application number. System displays the application details with the status and the stage details. Customer inquires how long it takes to get the loan approved and complete the account opening process. This is where we use machine learning model to predict the account opening date. This is achieved by training the model using historical application data and then learn and predict the account opening date from the model. For every application, once the account is opened, the same is used as feedback loop for retraining the model. Since application is already submitted for processing, the banker navigates to the dashboard and searches for the newly created application. The system displays the expected account opening date. The banker now provides the expected home loan account opening date to the customer.
I wish I can go to a bank and they can tell me, I want to apply for a mortgage, and I can actually come to know the expected date by which my mortgage is going to get approved and my account is going to be opened. So we are getting there. The industry is getting there. So again, having said so quickly, I wanted to spend some time introducing our partners at NVIDIA. Nicolas, good to have you here. I think the industry, probably everybody knows, how Oracle and NVIDIA are working so closely together. But especially in the context of financial services, would you like to share some of your thoughts? Where do you see our partnership going from here onwards, and what does it mean for the industry?
Thanks, Amit. Thanks for having me. Good morning, everyone. Yes, the partnership with NVIDIA and Oracle, has been going very strong for the past few years. In many areas, you are one of the hyperscalers. We are the closest from our reference design for implementing not only on GPUs, but also on networking, providing very scalable infrastructure with high performance. You mentioned Cloud World. You announced that by next year, with our next generation, you will have Zeta scale infrastructure with 132,000 GPU in a single network. If you're looking for that, call me. I'm looking for a customer who will need that type of power. But that's the kind of scale Oracle can offer, built on NVIDIA accelerated infrastructure. Most importantly, for the finance sector, you're solving, and we're solving together, two key problems we've seen. One is the one you mentioned. You're a regulated market. You have very specific needs. And though we have offered hardware and software solutions to solve some of the finance problem, implementing it has often been the challenge. Your cloud customer, your sovereign region, solve one of the challenges, offering security, private deployment, on a way to consume our accelerated platform in ways others cannot offer. The second thing that we've been working out together is the full compatibility of your platform with our software. Software is key today at NVIDIA, and we are offering solutions for the finance services that will basically address all the AI solutions that were mentioned. Accelerating quantitative finance, managing operation for fraud detection, for example. You detect fraud in 3 seconds, yeah, you can reimburse and reverse the transaction. You detect fraud in a millisecond, you can stop it. That's the kind of solution we have in our portfolio to help your operation with AI. Transforming the customer experience, chatbots, connecting to your trove of knowledge inside has also been something that cannot change really the way you propose services to your customer. The challenge is not identifying the use case, it's implementing them at scale with the best performance possible that drives good return on investment. That's what our solution at NVIDIA called NVIDIA AI Enterprise. So that's really a software solution that comes on top of our hardware platform, that comes on top on Oracle, solves. We've launched a few months ago something called NVIDIA NIMS, for example. So it stands for NVIDIA Inference Microservices, but NIMS is just cuter. The goal is, for example, if you're trying to implement a chatbot, instead of downloading an LLM and trying to implement and get the best performance by yourself, which you might eventually get, but it needs an AI expert and might take a lot of tinkering. You take an NVIDIA NIM, optimized for the model. So it's a container that has the model, an inference server, and all the pre-optimized parameters to run on our accelerated infrastructure. And you take Llama 3, for example, you'd get out of the box 5 times the performance of the public model. So you go from, I need an AI expert for weeks to run and implement my chatbot, to, I just need a guy who knows how to deploy a container, which is far easier to do and far easier to scale. So that's the kind of problem we are solving together. It's working on all the use cases you've mentioned, but making them implemented quickly, easily, securely in the way the customer wants, and leading to the best ROI possible.
Thank you so much, Nicolas, and we're absolutely proud about our investments that we continue to make. I do see, are we timing out, or do we have some time for questions?
Yeah, on a déjà dépassé un petit peu le temps, mais on va essayer de garder 1 ou 2 minutes pour les questions. Est-ce que des gens ont des questions dans la salle? Moi, je vais peut-être démarrer. Amit, one question for you. What are the main challenges that you foresee to apply AI for all across the financial industry?
I think today, where from an Oracle lens, where we are seeing where the financial services industry is, I think the biggest problems, the challenges that we are trying to face over here is what is it that we are solving? One, we are looking at it from in terms of the book from a financial services. Go to any of the large banks, right? I mean, even if you look at, say, the top 4 French banks, I mean, I've got BNPP, Crédit Agricole, SocGen, BPC, total assets of all these 4 banks. Give or take, we are looking at about total assets anywhere between $6 and $7 trillion, euros, sorry, maybe in excess of $7 trillion, total assets of all of these banks. Top 4 banks in France alone. If I look at how much of that capital is now blocked in the corporate book, which is where the CIB, the investment banking, the corporate book is, maximum we are looking at about, say, about 1.5, 2 trillion euros blocked in capital, which is not available for deployment. So if anybody can come up with a use case using AI, deploy a large language model on a cloud infrastructure and go back to any of these banks and say, we can actually help you unlock some part of that capital, you are done. You are done. Forget you. I mean, the banks will be, coming back to you and having that conversation. And today, as I did mention, right, I mean, from Oracle, we are actually talking and working with one of the largest banks in the UK, where we are helping them on their corporate credit book in terms of how we can streamline some of their capital, which is currently holding the RWAs under Basel, in terms of from a Pillar 3 disclosures. So that's number one. And the number 2 problem that we are noticing is, I think from the industry is, and we can have this conversation in 2 years' time. Passwords are going to be redundant. 2 years. At Oracle, we will do it next year. This was a statement which we made even at CloudWorld. Next year, Oracle employees, 120,000 employees. I'm not saying it's going to be mandatory for anyone or everyone at Oracle, but we will be using more of autonomous technologies with our autonomous database, with our autonomous cloud infrastructure, using AI to say, you know what, why do we even need passwords in the industry? And especially financial services. If we can actually get rid of passwords, I think we've solved two major problems.
Est-ce que je peux peut-être rajouter un petit mot? Sorry, I will do
Absolutely.
in French. Je pense que moi, un des enjeux que je vois et une des grandes problématiques qu'on retrouve, c'est que pour avoir une IA de qualité et en faire quelque chose d'intéressant, évidemment, il y a les données, on va dire, publiques, qui sont souvent embeddées dans tous les modèles, mais pour la rendre pertinente dans le monde de l'entreprise, il faut avoir accès aux données de l'entreprise. Et donc là, on va avoir deux sujets dont j'ai un peu parlé, mais le premier, c'est la qualité des données. Et c'est vraiment un enjeu, je pense, pour beaucoup d'entre vous, si vous êtes sur des sujets data, c'est vraiment la qualité des données. Et le deuxième, après, ça va être réussir à donner accès à cette donnée. Donc nous, on a des solutions, effectivement, avec la partie vectorisation de l'ADB, mais ce n'est pas les seuls sur le marché. Mais c'est vraiment les deux enjeux aujourd'hui que je vois, c'est le silotage des données qui sont faits dans les différentes entreprises et comment on arrive à résoudre tout ça pour avoir des LLM de qualité.
Merci à tous les deux, merci Amit, merci Camille, merci Nicolas. Je pense qu'on n'a plus le temps, on a déjà bien dépassé. Bonne journée à vous tous et encore merci d'être venus sur la stage avec nous.
Merci à tous.
Merci.